It is Wednesday, 18 September 2024, approximately 0930 hours Eastern. Now, last night I did a video on the pager bomb attack, if you want to refer to it that way, in Lebanon yesterday on the 17th. After I put out that video, more information has come out, and the way I laid it out in the video is pretty much how it actually happened. The Israeli government has put out press releases as to what they did and how they did it. Information has also come out from EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, in Lebanon, who actually got a hold of some pagers that did not go off. Now, before we get too far into this, because there's a lot of people watching these videos who do not know my background. I am a retired U.S. Army combat engineer. My job was to deal with demolitions, aka explosives, landmines, booby traps, field fortifications, and obstacles. During the war on terrorism, we were given the primary job of finding and dealing with IEDs, or improvised explosive devices. In previous wars, this was an engineer mission, and we were told to look for improvised mines or booby traps. Depending on the war, determined what it was called back then. During the war on terrorism, it got a new name, IED. Now, as I said, I retired from the U.S. Army, which means I have more than just the basic training knowledge on demolitions. I had to pick up a whole lot of information over the years, especially during the war on terrorism, where what we were encountering was evolving. New components being brought in, new ways of doing things, changing older patterns that had been used by previous insurgent and guerrilla groups with those modern components. Now, there is a disconnect because of that. I have had comments from people that I'm willing to bet have only served just the one term in the military, and the only knowledge that they have is what they learned in basic training, or excuse me, AIT. Now, one question people keep bringing up is, how would you fit an electric blasting cap in there? This is a training aid electric blasting cap. As you can see, it is pretty long. And I can tell you from experience, these are longer than your standard non-electric blasting cap. A non-electric blasting cap is the same diameter, but it's about 3/4 or 2/3 of the size. And I just happen to have here a blasting cap holder for non-electric caps. And now I will put this in here, and you can see there is a lot of difference in the electric cap. And here you can see diameter. They're about a little over 1/4 of an inch in diameter. I mentioned in the video yesterday that in the late 90s, back when the military was supposed to be worried about package bombs and that stuff from Al-Qaeda before 9/11, we were being shown, trained on what to look for in terrorist explosive devices at that time. And I did mention in the video I did yesterday that there were miniaturized blasting caps 20 to 30 years ago. The miniaturized blasting caps are only about an inch in length. And that was 20, 30 years ago. And that miniaturized electric blasting cap had the same strength as a full-size military electric blasting cap. There are miniaturized components out there. People seem to be skipping over that part. I also mentioned in there too, plastic explosives is moldable, which means it doesn't come in a standard shape from the factory and has to stay that shape. Yes, C4 is more effective if you keep it in the block or sheet or roll form that it comes from the factory, but it can be molded to conform to the surface you're attaching it to. And that is what you see a lot of in terrorist explosives and also with sabotage devices from intelligence services. They will take plastic explosives and mold it into the space that it needs to fill to conform it to the object. Now, what information has come out actually tells us how this whole damn thing was done. Apollo, the company in Taiwan, put out a press release last night. They did an internal investigation as to what happened because they had to be careful for the possibility of product liability. They tracked down the particular contract that these pagers came through. My guess is they contacted the Lebanese government. The Lebanese government gave them serial numbers. They looked inside their system. They tracked these serial numbers, found out which order it came from. According to Apollo, these pagers were all part of an order size of around 5,000 units that were manufactured in Europe by a European subcontractor. This order was filled and delivered 5 months ago. So, right there, I told you, this happened most likely after October 7th. Well, I think 5 months ago is after October 7th. One person got after me and said that the Israelis had to have done this years ago because they've been using pagers for years. They may have been, but it looks like it's like what I figured in the video. They were upgrading their capability for their troops so that they could mobilize them quicker. And that information came from a press release directly from the manufacturer themselves that they released last night. Now, according to Israeli media and media out of Lebanon, Mossad has admitted they intercepted the shipment inside Europe and installed the charges and changed the programming there. Which also is what I said they probably did in the video. So there's another thumbs up on mine. Now the charge itself, we have information on that too from the Lebanese security forces, their explosive ordnance disposal. Not all of the pagers went off. Hezbollah turned some of them over to the Lebanese army to find out what happened. Their EOD cracked them open. And when they cracked them open, they found each of the pagers had a max of 20 grams or under 3/4 of an ounce of explosive inside them. So this was not exploding lithium battery. This was an explosive charge. This is the source for this is the Lebanese army, their explosive ordnance disposal. So there we go. Another thumbs up for me on my theory. Now, the actual explosive content was identified. It is PETN. Now, this is not your average bulk explosive charge. This is not TNT. This is not C4, C2, or A5, or any other type of explosive you're aware of. PETN is a highly sensitive explosive. This compound is typically mixed with RDX, rapidly detonating explosive, and it is used in the contents of blasting caps and det cord, detonating cord. PETN is heat sensitive. That's how you actually set off these. The PETN inside here will react to the heat, which on an electric blasting cap, you have a little short circuit that happens inside here. It heats up the end of the element here, and then that heat sets off the PETN inside the mix, setting off the blasting cap. On a non-electric blasting cap, the spark that's caused by the time fuse typically, or some other detonator means, such as a standard base, that spark ignites the PETN inside the blasting cap, setting it off. Now, the information for that on what PETN is used for and how, that information comes from a U.S. Army manual called FM 5-250, Explosives and Demolitions. It actually says on the very first page, where it starts naming off different types of explosive compounds that are out there, PETN is near the top. And it's listed in there as a highly sensitive explosive used in the manufacture of detonating cord and blasting caps. It is also mixed with other explosive compounds to make them more sensitive, easier to go off. Now, I did get one item wrong, and that's how the explosive was set off. Now, according to Lebanese EOD, the PETN was found molded around the lithium batteries. So there was no separate detonator as we understand it, a small blasting cap. Reportedly, from journalists on the ground with the Wall Street Journal, they talked to people that were around Hezbollah people, their contacts in the organization. And this explains why some of them had their hands blown off, like I said, looking like it was taken out by a hand grenade simulator. The pagers started to heat up quickly. Some of their members noticed that, grabbed the pager, tried taking it off, throwing it to the ground. But as soon as they got their hand on it, the pagers exploded. So Lebanese EOD has pieced together what happened. A signal came through to the pagers. The pagers bypassed all internal safeties and started heating up the lithium battery. Not to the point that it was going to outgas, but started heating it up as quick as possible. I'm sure the safety features started kicking in on the batteries themselves, but the temperature got up to a point that it was high enough to set off the PETN that was wrapped around the batteries, less than 1 ounce worth. So I was off on that. I thought it'd be 1 to 3 ounces. It was around 2/3 of an ounce, a little bit more than that. So the PETN then went off. So it was not the lithium battery that exploded. It was explosive compound that was wrapped on the battery. They used the battery itself to basically do what the electric leads do inside a blasting cap. And the amount of explosive that was inside the pager far exceeds what's inside a standard standard electric blasting cap. Now, one of the things that I will mention this in the military, when you get trained on the strength of a cap, one of the things they do for you, they take a cap, they put it on a section of time fuse, put a fuse igniter on that. They grab a metal ammo can, take it out to the range. They set it in the middle of the range, tell you what's going on. They're trying to teach you how dangerous a cap is, how much strength a blasting cap has. They then pop the igniter, drop that length of time fuse with a single blasting cap in it inside that metal ammo can. They then close the metal ammo can. We then stay behind the barriers and wait for the explosion. After the explosion, we get taken out onto the range to see what a single blasting cap was able to do to an ammo can. And what it does, it blows the ammo can open and completely deforms it. And that's just a single blasting cap. The amount of explosive that was inside one of these pagers far exceeds that. PETN has more strength than C4 and definitely more in TNT, far, far more than ammonium nitrate. The Israelis knew what to do. People have pointed out that stuff similar to this was done by the U.S. military during the war on terrorism, but instead of putting it in pagers, we put it in cell phones and made sure those cell phones ended up into the hands of insurgent leaders, and we took them out that way. But these were stories that were never in the media. So there you go. There's the updates on the situation, and I was about 90% correct, give or take. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons.